The Galactic Agricultural Council meeting had devolved into its usual circus of superiority and condescension. Representatives from 47 species sat in their climate-controlled pods, their various forms of laughter, chittering, buzzing, harmonious trilling, filling the crystalline chamber as they reviewed the latest productivity reports. Humans, wheezed Ambassador Krexthul through his breathing apparatus, his 8 compound eyes gleaming with amusement, still playing in the dirt like primitive insects. Look at these numbers, barely 3 tons per hectare on their best worlds. The Zephyrian delegate's crystalline form chimed in agreement. Our atmospheric cultivation systems yield 15 tons per cubic meter of space. And the Vorthan biosynthesis chambers? 23 tons per standardized unit. Yet somehow the humans think they deserve a seat on this council. Marcus Chen sat quietly in the human delegation pod, his weathered hands folded on the table before him. At 63, he looked exactly like what he was, a farmer from Iowa who had somehow found himself representing humanity's agricultural interest to the galaxy. His simple clothes and soil-stained fingernails stood in stark contrast to the sleek environmental suits and biomechanical augmentations surrounding him. Perhaps, suggested the Altarian representative, her melodic voice carrying across the chamber, we should reassign humanity's agricultural development budget to species with proven capabilities. The Terrans have had adequate time to modernize their methods. Marcus finally spoke, his voice carrying the slow, measured cadence of someone who had spent decades watching crops grow. With respect, ma'am, there's more to farming than just numbers on a report. The chamber erupted in what could generously be called laughter. The Krillian ambassador's tentacles writhed in apparent mirth. Enlighten us, human. What profound wisdom does dirt scratching provide that our advanced civilizations have overlooked? Adaptability, Marcus replied simply, and stubbornness. 3 months later, the first reports came in from Kepler 442b. This planet had been humanity's greatest terraforming success until it wasn't. A previously unknown solar phenomenon had begun, bombarding the world with radiation that scrambled electronic systems and killed the carefully engineered crops that had fed its 12 million colonists. The hydroponic facilities failed first. The atmospheric processors, dependent on quantum-regulated nutrient streams, collapsed within days. The biosynthesis chambers, pride of Vorthan engineering, produced nothing but toxic sludge when their molecular assemblers were disrupted by the radiation storms. Within 2 weeks, Kepler 442b was facing complete agricultural collapse. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was notably more subdued than the previous meeting. Ambassador Krexthul's compound eyes darted nervously as he addressed the assembly. The situation is unprecedented. Our technical teams estimate it will take at least 18 months to develop radiation-hardened systems capable of functioning in the affected region. The colonists don't have 18 months, stated the Altarian representative, her usual melodic tone replaced by flat urgency. They have perhaps 6 weeks of stored food remaining. Marcus stood slowly, drawing attention from the assembled delegates. If I might make a suggestion? The humans can barely feed themselves, scoffed the Zephyrian delegate. What could you possibly— Seeds, Marcus interrupted the first time he'd ever cut off another speaker in these halls. And soil samples from Earth, about 40 tons of each if you can spare the transport. The silence stretched for long moments before nervous chittering filled the chamber. Surely you're not suggesting, Krexthul began, that primitive cultivation methods could succeed where our advanced systems have failed. Marcus smiled, the expression weathered but confident. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. The first transport arrived on Kepler 442b within the week, carrying Marcus and a small team of Earth farmers along with their requested cargo. What they found was a world in panic. Gleaming cities powered by failing technology, surrounded by vast fields of rotting crops and silent processing facilities. Marcus walked through the devastated agricultural zones, his boots squelching in the irradiated mud, while Kepler's human governor, Dr. Sarah Valdez, followed behind with increasing desperation in her voice. The quantum regulators are completely fried, she explained. The atmospheric processors keep cycling into safe mode. We've tried everything. This'll do fine, Marcus said, kneeling to scoop up a handful of the contaminated soil. He examined it with the practiced eye of someone who had been reading dirt longer than most species had been traveling between stars. "Do fine, Marcus. This soil is poisoned with exotic radiation. Nothing can grow in sunflowers," Marcus said, reaching into his pack for a small cloth bag. "Amazing plants, sunflowers. They'll pull heavy metals and radioactive materials right out of contaminated soil. Use them after Chernobyl, after Fukushima, after the Mumbai incident." Over the following weeks, as the planet's leadership watched in amazement and growing hope, Marcus and his team worked with methodical determination. They planted cover crops that thrived in the radiation, using varieties developed over centuries of agricultural challenges on Earth. Buckwheat and phacelia to rebuild soil structure, nitrogen-fixing legumes to restore fertility, and everywhere fields of sunflowers turning their faces toward Kepler, 442b's angry star. The local soil, once cleaned by Earth's hardy plants, proved remarkably fertile. Within a month, fast-growing vegetables were sprouting across the planet. Potatoes that could survive in marginal conditions, hardy grains that had fed humanity through countless famines and disasters. By the third month, when the emergency food supplies were nearly exhausted, Kepler 442b was producing enough food to feed its population. By the sixth month, they were exporting surplus to other worlds. The next Galactic Agricultural Council meeting was notably different. Marcus entered to find 46 species standing in respectful silence. Even the Vorthon biosynthesis engineers had come to observe the human delegation. Ambassador Krexthal approached Marcus personally, his compound eyes focused with newfound respect. "We, the Council, would be honored to learn from human agricultural techniques."
Perhaps a cultural exchange program?
Marcus nodded slowly, then smiled. "Well, first thing you've got to understand is that good farming isn't about the fanciest technology. It's about working with what you've got, adapting to what comes your way, and never giving up on growing something useful." He paused, looking around the chamber at species who had crossed the galaxy, but had forgotten the simple art of coaxing life from soil. "That, and you've got to respect the dirt. It's been feeding life a lot longer than any of us have been around to complicate things." The galactic community had learned a valuable lesson from a simple farmer from Iowa. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the most resilient ones, and sometimes the species you underestimate are the ones who save you when your advanced systems fail. In the end, it wasn't humanity's technology or weapons that earned them respect among the stars. It was their stubborn refusal to give up on the ancient art of making things grow, even in the most impossible conditions.